Hello and welcome to GameSack. Today we're taking a look at the Neo Geo X portable system.
I bought the Neo Geo X from Amazon for $129 with free shipping. That was a deal I could not pass up, Joe. I had to buy it. So I'm thinking, let's take a look at this thing and tear it apart and see if I got my money's worth.
Let's do it. The Neo Geo, the home version of the powerful arcade system that let you play the exact same arcade games at home. Later on, the Neo Geo Pocket Color allowed users to play watered-down but still fun versions of games, plus many original new titles. Now SNK has designed the Neo Geo X portable system, which plays real Neo Geo games, well, kind of. Released right before Christmas in 2012 and distributed in North America by Tomo and by Blaze in Europe, the Neo Geo X runs emulated versions of the original games. It has a 4.3-inch widescreen LCD which stretches game video by default, but you can press one of the new buttons on top of the portable to get it back to its proper 4:3 ratio. The four face buttons on the front are laid out in a very similar manner to the Neo Geo control pad, and the joystick has a micro switch similar to but not quite as nice as the Neo Geo Pocket Color. Game selection is done via a menu. You can select from any of the 20 built-in games or insert an official SD card to run other Neo Geo games. You can hook up the included composite analog or HDMI cables to play the games on your television. And when you hook the Neo Geo X up either via HDMI or composite AV out, the left and right stereo channels are reversed for your enjoyment. If you just plug in regular headphones, you're fine. With the composite AV out, you can just simply switch the left and right around. But with HDMI, you're kinda screwed. Included with the limited gold edition is a really nice docking station which replicates the look of the Neo Geo AES almost exactly. Plugging the portable into the docking station lets it charge and also allows you to hook up a USB joystick which is the exact size of the original sticks, but it feels perhaps a bit cheaper and it's much louder. And no, you can't use other USB controllers unfortunately. When hooked up to your TV, the video quality is far from great. This is what the system looks like in composite. Obviously, that is unacceptable. The HDMI output is much better. You get some decent 480p video, but there's lots of edge enhancement or sharpening which creates halos around the edges of the video. If you look close here, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. This actually reduces detail and makes the image look much worse. This is what a real Neo Geo looks like in S-video derived from the RGB output. Much better. Also, the Neo Geo X has very poor emulation. There's lots of screen tearing since the refresh rate of the emulator isn't locked to the 59.94 Hz video output. The Neo Geo X will currently cost you around $200 in the US and £175 in Europe.
Well, Joe, I like what you did with the system there, but I'm not so sure I got my money's worth.
Really?
So far, it's just kinda, I don't know, I don't feel very good about my purchase.
Well then, let's take a look at every single game that came with the system.
I think that's a good idea. That's the only way we're really gonna give this thing a fair chance is by looking at the games. King of the Monsters by SNK is a great fighting game. Or is it a wrestling game? If you've ever wondered what it'd be like to control Godzilla, then this is the game for you. Minus Godzilla. But there is a Godzilla-like monster here, and I'm sure the other monsters are all like other monsters maybe from Godzilla, I don't know. Anyways, you pick one of the 6 monsters to battle the others. Each stage you fight in is completely destructible inside the electrical borders. In fact, you get more points for the more destruction that takes place. The game is easy to play and is just fun in general. I love the level of detail in this game. You can pick up tanks and even snatch helicopters from the air and use them as weapons. The match is awarded to the first monster to get a 3 count on a downed enemy. The music is pretty enjoyable while playing the game, but I wouldn't want to listen to it on its own. Overall, this is a fun game and I'm glad they had it in the first batch.
Alpha Mission 2 is the eagerly anticipated sequel to the NES smash hit Alpha Mission. There's really not much going on in this game. You collect and store your weapon upgrades to use at a time of your choosing. Other than that, it's pretty standard. I did notice a lot of lag in the controls as I was recording the game for this review. Check it out. I have the real cartridge and it definitely isn't this bad. Here's the real cartridge on a real system on the same TV. Now, not everyone will be able to tell much of a difference, but believe me, you can sure feel it. The graphics are nothing special at all, and the backgrounds are very repetitive. The one thing I do like about this game, though, is the music on stage 1. Hell, that's the reason I bought this game on cartridge. Good thing it was cheap. But really, you won't find anything here that the Genesis, TurboGrafx-16, and even the Super Nintendo don't do 100 times better.
World Heroes Perfect!
World Heroes Perfect it's far from perfect. After playing this fighter for a while, you know what, I am not impressed. While there's lots of characters to choose from, the majority of them are all rather, well, uninteresting. Not only that, but they all seem to have extremely annoying voices that end up just grating on your ears very quickly. The actual fighting is okay, and the game controls decently, but that doesn't make it a fun game. The music is below average and poorly emulated. The graphics are colorful, but the backgrounds are very unmemorable. This will be one of the least played games on this Neo Geo emulator for me. In fact, I'm probably never going to play it again.
Fatal Fury was the first one-on-one fighter ever for the Neo Geo. It was actually designed by the same guy who did the first Street Fighter for Capcom. In this game, you pick from a whopping 3 fighters and an exciting story is told between each match. This game's gimmick is that you can jump between the foreground and the background, probably because SNK demanded that the scaling feature be used somehow. It doesn't really add too much to the gameplay in my opinion. The game itself is pretty stiff, and it came out around 6 or 7 months after Street Fighter 2, so it's really no wonder that crowds passed it by. I've never really been good at performing the moves in Fatal Fury games. My favorite thing about this game is how the backgrounds change from day to night during each bout. It actually makes me want to play all 3 rounds on each stage just to see everything.
League Bowling is a decent bowling game. It's very simple to pick up the controls as there are only 2 commands you have to input. After you pick your ball size and your left or right-handedness, it's off to the lanes.
Hey, let's bowl!
Position your player, hit the A button to determine your curve, and then hit the A button again to determine the strength of your throw. It's easy to control, but not easy to throw strikes every frame. There are 3 game modes to choose from: regular bowling, flash bowling, which gives a point bonus based on a randomizer that picks between 1 and 500 points if you get a strike or a spare. Finally, there is Strike 90, which is the regular game but gives you 60 points for a spare and 90 points for a strike. It's nice and it adds a bit of replayability to this game. I like the colorful graphics and even the scaling looks nice. The music isn't good though, as it's very repetitive and just not enjoyable. It's a decent game, but I would much rather had Neo Turf Masters.
Fatal Fury Special is an updated version of Fatal Fury 2. Lots more characters in this one compared to the first game, and the animation is better, but it's still kind of stiff. This game has combos like other popular fighting games of the time, but I've still never really been very good at pulling them off in this game. Some of the backgrounds seem really busy to me, and it's hard to make out certain details as things just kind of get lost in the cluttered visuals. Now this is a good game, but I think it still lagged behind what Capcom was doing at the time.
Magician Lord is a staple for Neo Geo fans. It's no surprise that it's included here. Oddly, they included the arcade version ROM instead of the AES version. As such, the intro is completely missing, and when you die, you respawn at the exact same place. Unlimited continues will allow you to walk right through this one. This game has some great graphics and music. Unfortunately, any sound made by the FM part of the hardware sounds really bad. I mean, just listen to that. Ugh! It's still a great game, though.
Come on, nice guy, but your life is mine very soon.
Now this is more like it. Real Bout Fatal Fury Special is actually the 6th game in the Fatal Fury series, and it shows. The gameplay is much faster with a large emphasis on combos that even I can sometimes pull off. Your timing doesn't have to be right on the nose to pull off the moves like the other 2 Fatal Fury games in this collection, and I like that. The faster and slightly less precise gameplay really helps me to enjoy this one. It really is like night and day compared to the other Fatal Fury games on here. It retains the dual layered fighting and the changing backgrounds, and I still can't emphasize how much more intense this game is. The graphics are very well done with great animation and much better background design. Even the music is worth mentioning this time as it's pretty damn good. Out of the included Fatal Fury games, this one will see the most play by me.
If you want a great arcade-style baseball game, then it's hard to beat Baseball Stars 2. This game has tons of charm, and what I like best about it is that it's a quick game to get into and you can play a full game in about 30 minutes. The controls are responsive and easy. Graphics are colorful and all the players are drawn with lots of personality, size, and great animation. There are a total of 6 teams and all of them are fictional. There's not a lot of variety in the players and each team has the same players just with a color swap. The music in this game is, well, it's just average, with lots of repetitive melodies, but you know what, it works well for this game. And the game announcer sounds realistic, although he sounds a bit repetitive.
There's the pitch.
This is just a fun game to have and a great addition to a small library of games currently available for the system.
There's the pitch. Right two.
Cyberlip is an early run-and-gun game for the system which we've talked about before.
Cyberlip.
It takes place in the future where robots are trying to take over the world. It's a moderately fun game that controls decently enough. This game turned a few heads in the arcade, mostly due to the Stage 1 boss. I remember seeing this big red thing at a pizza place and it made me think that the Neo Geo was just awesome. The music really isn't anything worth remembering, and surprisingly the FM audio in this game is emulated fairly well. Now this game does have unlimited continue, so the only thing stopping you from finishing the game the first time you play it is yourself. There are some branching paths that will offer a couple of minutes of replayability. It's a decent game, I guess.
Look out below. Look out below. Look out below.
Oh man, Dave, I don't think we've covered that many games in a single episode for a while.
Oh, Joe, you are exactly right.
I am.
Anyways, the only time we've really done that is in a montage, but we're not doing a montage. We still have 11 more games that we are going to talk about.
Crap, you're right. I forgot about those, so...
Yeah, so be quiet and let's get going. Art of Fighting was released in 1992. I really had a fun time with this game. The controls are simple with only 4 buttons to use, a punch, kick, throw, and a taunt button. I had some problems throwing fireballs and pulling off special moves at times, but maybe that was just me. Or maybe it wasn't. Graphically, the game's pretty good with large character sprites and decent backgrounds. I like the effect of the screen scaling out as the fighters are further apart and scaling back in as they get close again. There's even some interesting mini-games to play after a couple of fights in the story mode. Speaking of the story mode, you can only choose between 2 fighters which the story revolves around. To be able to play as the other fighters, you must play multiplayer. The music is good for the game, but nothing tremendously special. It's a fun game, and I'm glad it was included in the initial lineup.
Metal Slug!
Of course, no Neo Geo compilation would ever be complete without Metal Slug. This is one incredible run-and-gun, and I personally think it's the game that helped keep the Neo Geo alive for so long since it was so amazing. You play as some guy and he's got to rescue a bunch of long-haired hippies while destroying anything and everything that even looks like an enemy. You've got a bunch of different weapons that the POWs give you after you rescue them, as well as grenades. But let's not forget the metal slug itself, which is a tank which you can get into in order to kick some serious ass. It can take a bunch of hits while providing some intense firepower. The graphics were the most detailed in any Neo Geo game ever at the time and still stand out today. I mean, there's tons of stuff always blowing up everywhere. It's awesome. Unfortunately, this is the US home version here, so instead of red blood, we get gray sweat when we kill an enemy. Yeah, this is good. I'm sure we protected tons of innocent children as a result. Red blood is bad and horrible to look at, but seeing people on fire burning to death, yeah, that's completely okay. The music is pretty good and goes great with the game, but the few FM sound effects sound chintzy due to the piss-poor emulation. Still, this will be a game you want to spend a lot of time with.
Come on, boy.
Mutation Nation is a great beat-em-up brought to you by SNK. Unlike a few other beat-em-ups, there's no woman to rescue here. Instead, it's your job to clean up the slums of mutated lifeforms before they spread across the nation in the year 2000XX. I like this idea and it turned out really well. There's lots of different types of enemies and also lots of the same types of enemies, but it's still fun beating everything up. Instead of picking up objects like baseball bats and dynamite, you pick up one of 4 icons, which gives you a super screen-filling move which can take care of just about anything in your way. The control is really good and there's a nice variety of moves you can pull off. The music is good and it fits the game's kind of eerie atmosphere. A great addition to the Neo Geo X.
King of Fighters 95 takes fighters from various Neo Geo fighting games and crams them together. You can fight as teams, which means you have 3 fighters and so does the enemy. All 3 enemy fighters have to lose for you to win. I've only ever played this game on the Sega Saturn before this, and it seems mostly identical except there aren't any loading times. But they did add some occasional screen tearing due to the poor emulation. And I don't know what it is, this version seems much harder than the Saturn version. Maybe it's because I'm using the Neo Geo joystick instead of the glorious Saturn control pad. But you know what, that's just me because I'm more of a control pad kind of guy. All in all, I think I'd rather play the Saturn version, or at least the real Neo Geo version, but I think that should go without saying.
Puzzled has got to be one of the least fun Tetris ripoffs I've ever played. Firstly, it has a storyline, and you know what? A puzzle game just does not need a storyline, it just needs to be fun. So the whole idea here is that you must unlock a balloon trapped at the bottom of the screen by eliminating the blocks around it so it can fly away and be free. The game would actually be kind of fun if it didn't have a few problems. Firstly, the control is horrendous. Unlike a good Tetris game in which you can rotate your piece in both directions, this game only lets you rotate in one direction. This makes it impossible to fit pieces when they are dropping fast or if you are backed up to the top of the screen. It's also hard to judge how far you need to push the joystick for your piece to fall where you want it. I always felt like I was pushing it too far and ended up not pushing it enough. Secondly, the distribution of pieces is uneven. Lots of times you will end up getting the same pieces 5 or more times in a row. I mean, this does happen in other Tetris games, but it seems to happen way more in this game. The music is nothing great and is just there and super duper repetitive. While it's nice to have some diversity in games available for the system, I would have preferred Puzzle Bobble or Magical Drop.
Here we have 3 Count Bout. You know, I've never really liked wrestling games at all, probably because I completely suck at them. This one is no different. You know, I like the presentation with all the flamboyant entrances and all that, but I don't really like playing the game itself. I want to play it as a fighting game, but it doesn't work that way. The game also keeps asking me to use wrestling techniques. What the hell is that even supposed to mean? This might be a fun game to watch other people play, but like most wrestling games, it's really not one that I personally ever want to play again.
Nom 1975 is a great action game with a steep learning curve. Lots of heavy action here and you need to stay alert to see everything that is going on. Tough controls will make for a quick game over as it's hard to get used to not being able to run and shoot at the same time. The music in this game is really dramatic and it helps you get into this great game. But, once again, the FM sound emulation can be a little rough.
Soccer, otherwise known as football, is the most popular sport in the world, so I guess they had to include super sidekicks here. The game itself is okay. I found it really hard to control the ball when I was on offense. You often can't see your teammates, so you need to pass the ball blindly as there's no on-screen map of other players' locations. When you're on defense, you automatically switch to the player closest to the ball without warning, so overall I'd say this game is kinda hard. I was actually able to score some goals, just not when I was recording this. I've never been able to win a game though. The graphics are decent and there's lots of cool scaling effects going on. The music is okay, but the same tune plays through the entire game and it gets old pretty fast. It's a decent game, I suppose, but not likely something I'll come back to often.
Personally, I think Samurai Showdown 2 is one of SNK's finest fighting games. I really like this game as it has a certain feel to it that just makes it unique. I'm not sure if it's the horrible English or the blaring sound effects, but I just like this game. All of the characters are memorable and fun to use, and that's pretty rare in a fighting game. I really like Calford and his dog. Every fighting game should have a character with a dog. And Calford, he keeps saying, "Rub my brain." At least that's what I think he's saying. The backgrounds in this game are beautiful to look at, and the music sounds very minimal and ethnic Japanese, and I like it. It fits this game really well. If you play in USA mode, the blood is green. Put it in Japan mode and the blood is red, but the text is in Japanese. This is a great game for the system that will get many hours of play.
Last Resort is SNK's response to R-Type, I guess. This game has tons of potential, but I never really got into it. It's just too damn hard from the get-go for me to care about taking the time to learn it and get better. I mean, I can beat R-Type, but I can't even get past the third stage here. Even the excessive slowdown doesn't help very much. Oh well. But the graphics are great, even if they did rip off Akira. It's hilarious how a lot of the enemy pilots fall out of their ships when I shoot them down. The music is, well, it's not bad. And of course, it's got the typical blaring Neo Geo PSG sound effects. I think they're PSG sound effects anyway. You know, I can respect that this game tried to be something special, but it's not.
Ninja Masters is the first game to come on an actual SD card, and I'm glad they included it on the limited edition packaging. The game is really enjoyable and a lot of fun to play. It's somewhat similar to Samurai Showdown with a little twist. At any point during a match, your character can pull out or put away a weapon. This is interesting, as a lot of the moves will change depending on if the weapon is in or out. Each player has a power bar at the bottom of the screen that can be used in different ways. If you wish, you can activate a hyper mode which makes your attack stronger and you can use as many superpowers as you want. Also, you can do a super combo, finishing move, and there are even desperation moves if you're almost dead. The characters are all really well drawn and animated. I really like the backgrounds, and the music is very fitting for this game and feels like medieval Japan.
And there you go, that is the Neo Geo X for you, and you know, it's I'm not too happy with it because of the emulation issues. If they fixed the video issues and the sound emulation issues and stuff like that, I would have probably really liked it because I'm able to record lots of games from it. So
yeah, right. I'm hoping that's what happens because I don't mind playing on the handheld. I mean, you can still see the tearing of the video and whatnot, but it's not as noticeable just because of the small screen. I'm hoping this firmware update that they've talked about coming will fix these issues, but they say it's coming. We haven't seen it yet. I'm a little worried that they're just going to let it go and just kind of let it dissolve into nothing.
Oh, geez.
You know, they don't say anything, so it leaves you, you know, feeling that nothing's going to happen. So,
and maybe this will just be, curiosity someday, but who knows?
Maybe.
Hopefully it'll be supported and fixed. And in the meantime, thank you for watching GameSack.